Welcome, dear viewers, to another spine-chilling episode on Lurking Raven. Tonight, we step inside a seemingly ordinary living room, warmed by the laughter of a single father and his 8-year-old daughter, Ava. But beneath this facade of normalcy, there lurks an unsettling presence. Ava's new doll, Daisy, with her intense eyes and pink dress, has become more than just a plaything. In a home where balloons symbolize a desperate attempt to lift spirits and shadows echo unspoken fears, we delve into a world where the lines between innocence and the supernatural blur. As Ava's attachment to Daisy grows, so does the unease in the air. From strange behavior to unexplained phenomena, join me as we explore how a simple birthday gift spirals into a tale of chilling revelations and the haunting power of unseen forces. In the warm glow of our living room, cluttered with years of memories and a single father's touch, Ava's laughter was the brightest light. Today, she turned 8. I tried to fill the room with cheer, balloons nestling against the ceiling, but they couldn't lift the heaviness in my heart. The absence of her mother, gone too soon, hung in the air, unspoken yet palpable. Ava, with her bright green eyes and playful smile, was a beacon of innocence. She unwrapped her presents with childlike wonder, her excitement momentarily bridging the gap I so often felt between us. Then she reached the final gift, a beautifully crafted doll named Daisy. With brown hair and a pink dress, Daisy was like a friend conjured from Ava's lonely dreams. "Daddy, she's perfect," Ava beamed, hugging the doll tightly. Daisy's piercing eyes seemed to gaze back at her with an unsettling intensity. I smiled, though a chill traced my spine. "I'm glad you like her, sweetheart." As the evening waned, I noticed Ava talking to Daisy, a one-sided conversation filled with the earnestness only a child could muster. It was endearing, yet something about Daisy's unblinking stare made me uneasy. Later, as I tucked Ava into bed, she whispered, "Daisy says she's happy to be here." Her voice held a tone of secrecy, a hidden layer I couldn't decipher. "That's nice, Ava," I replied, forcing a smile. In the dim light, Daisy's eyes seemed to follow me, a silent sentinel in the shadows. That night, dreams filled my sleep, unsettling and vivid. I wandered through a distorted version of our home, where every turn revealed Daisy watching me with those piercing eyes. I woke up in a cold sweat, the remnants of the dream clinging to me like cobwebs. In the morning, Ava was already up, Daisy seated at the breakfast table. "She wanted to watch the sunrise," Ava explained, her voice tinged with an unfamiliar seriousness. I poured coffee, trying to shake off the remnants of the night. "That's nice, Ava." But the words felt hollow. The doll's presence was like a new gravity in the house, subtle yet undeniable. Days passed, and Ava's attachment to Daisy grew. She carried the doll everywhere, their whispers a constant murmur in the background. I tried to engage Ava, to bridge the emotional gap widening between us, but she seemed lost in a world where only she and Daisy existed. One evening, as I passed by her room, I heard Ava talking. "Daisy, do you miss your other family?" Her voice was low, filled with a curiosity that bordered on apprehension. I paused, listening. There was no response, but the air felt charged, as if an unseen conversation was taking place. That night, I dreamt again. Daisy stood in our living room, her eyes glowing in the dark, a whispering voice filling the air, speaking words I couldn't understand. I woke with a start, the house silent, except for the faint sound of Ava murmuring in her sleep. As days turned into weeks, the house felt different, charged with an energy I couldn't explain. Ava's laughter was less frequent, her eyes often distant. And Daisy, that ever-present figure, seemed to watch us with a knowing gaze. I started to question the normality of it all, the line between imagination and something else blurring. Daisy was just a doll, a child's toy. But the unease in my heart grew with each passing day, a creeping dread that something was profoundly wrong. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the room, Ava looked up at me, her eyes wide. "Daddy, Daisy says she has a secret." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. I stared at the doll, its eyes seemingly alive in the fading light. "What secret, Ava?" My voice was barely a whisper, a mix of fear and curiosity. Ava smiled, a cryptic expression that chilled me to the bone. "She'll tell us when the time is right." The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling around us like a shroud. In that moment, the line between reality and the supernatural blurred, leaving me to wonder what secrets Daisy held and what they meant for Ava and me. As darkness enveloped the room, I realized our lives had changed, irrevocably intertwined with the mystery of Daisy, the birthday gift that was so much more than it seemed. The eerie morning light cast a ghostly hue over Ava's room, barely chasing away the remnants of the night. I stood in the doorway, watching Ava as she whispered to Daisy. This doll, with her piercing blue eyes and unnerving presence, had become a silent, ever-watchful part of our lives. Ava's fixation with her was growing, something that both fascinated and troubled me. "Good morning, Ava," I said, trying to inject normalcy into the increasingly strange atmosphere of our home. "Ready for breakfast?" Ava's glance shifted from Daisy to me, her eyes clouded with a mix of fear and attachment. "Can Daisy come too? She gets anxious alone." I nodded, though a part of me recoiled at the thought. Breakfast was a quiet affair, with Ava's attention constantly torn between Daisy and her food. Her unease was palpable, and I found myself glancing at the doll, whose gaze seemed almost accusatory. "Daddy, Daisy told me something scary," Ava said suddenly, her voice quivering. "What did she tell you?" I asked, maintaining a skeptical yet attentive tone. "She sees shadows at night and hears whispers," Ava replied, her eyes wide with sincerity. I wanted to dismiss it as a child's overactive imagination, but recalling my own unsettling dreams, I hesitated. "Ava, it's just a doll. It can't see or hear." "But she's really scared," Ava insisted, her voice tinged with desperation. I reached out, taking her hand in mine. "Ava, you're safe here. I promise." But the promise felt hollow. The odd occurrences around the house, the whispers, the unexplained chill in the air, they all started to form a pattern that I couldn't ignore. Ava's relationship with Daisy was no longer just a child's play. It was becoming something more, something deeply unsettling. That afternoon, as we sat in the living room, the air felt thick with tension. Ava, clutching Daisy, asked if we could cover the doll's eyes. "She's frightened of the shadows," Ava explained. The request sent a shiver down my spine, but I complied, covering Daisy's eyes with a cloth. The room immediately felt different, as if we had shut out an unseen observer. Throughout the day, the house seemed to whisper with secrets. The TV flicked on by itself. A cold draft swept through the rooms, and I could swear I heard faint murmurs emanating from the corners of the house. I tried to rationalize each incident, but doubt crept into my mind. At bedtime, Ava's fear was evident. "Daddy, "Can you check under the bed? Daisy hears something." I did so, showing her the empty space. "There's nothing there, Ava." "But do you believe in ghosts?" she asked, her voice small. I wanted to reassure her, to be the rational father she needed. "I believe in things that can be explained. Ghosts aren't real." But as I left her room, the certainty in my voice wavered. The house felt alive with an unspoken presence. Lying in bed, the silence of the night was broken by faint whispers, and I found myself questioning my own beliefs. What was real, and what was imagination? The line was blurring, and the sense of dread that something was deeply amiss in our home grew with each passing moment. Daisy, the doll that had been a birthday gift, was now a harbinger of something unexplainable, a mystery that Ava and I were unwittingly a part of. As the whispers continued in the dark, I realized that our lives had been irrevocably altered by Daisy's presence. The secret she held was slowly revealing itself, drawing us deeper into its enigmatic and terrifying embrace. As the whispers of the night faded into the silence of dawn, a sense of foreboding lingered in our home. The morning light did little to dispel the darkness that had settled in my heart. Ava, still asleep, clutched Daisy to her chest, her face peaceful yet etched with traces of her recent fears. I watched her for a moment, the memory of last night's unsettling events replaying in my mind. The doll, Daisy, with its glassy, accusing eyes, seemed more than just a toy now. It was as if, with each passing day, the line between reality and the supernatural grew thinner, blurring into a terrifying ambiguity. "Good morning, Daddy." Ava's voice, groggy with sleep, pulled me back from my thoughts. I forced a smile, trying to keep the worry from my voice. "Morning, Ava. Did you sleep okay?" She nodded, her eyes darting to Daisy. "Yeah, but I kept her close so she wouldn't be scared." Her words echoed in my mind as I prepared breakfast, the normalcy of the routine clashing starkly with the unease that had taken root in our home. Ava was quieter than usual, her glances towards Daisy frequent and filled with a complex mix of fear and care. As the day unfolded, strange occurrences continued to unsettle the normal rhythm of our lives. The TV turned on by itself again. A cold draft swept through the house, despite the closed windows, and I caught glimpses of shadows moving just at the edge of my vision. With each incident, my skepticism waned, giving way to a creeping dread. That night, as Ava prepared for bed, her reluctance was palpable. "Daddy, can Daisy sleep in your room tonight? I think she's scared of my room." The request sent a shiver down my spine, but I agreed, unable to ignore the fear in my daughter's eyes. I placed Daisy in a chair in my room, her eyes seemingly following my every move. I lay in bed, the silence of the house oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak and groan of the old structure. Ava's door was ajar, a sliver of light from the hallway illuminating her peaceful form. But sleep eluded me. My thoughts were fixated on the doll, its presence in my room both a reassurance and a source of unease. As I drifted between wakefulness and sleep, a soft sound caught my attention, a faint scraping, like porcelain over wood. My heart raced as I sat up, the room bathed in moonlight. And there, in the dim light, I saw Daisy, no longer in the chair, but on the dresser, her eyes fixed on me. A cold sweat broke out across my forehead. This was no longer the realm of coincidence or imagination. Something unexplainable was happening, and it centered around Daisy. The next morning, Ava found me exhausted, my eyes heavy with the weight of the night's vigil. "Did Daisy behave?" she asked, her voice tinged with a mix of hope and apprehension. I nodded, masking my fear. Yes, she was very good. But as I watched Ava play, her laughter echoing through the house, the sense of normalcy felt like a fragile veneer, masking the growing horror that lurked in the shadows of our home. That night, and many nights after, the line between reality and nightmare continued to blur. Daisy's silent vigil, the unexplained occurrences, and the whispers in the dark all wove into a tapestry of fear that enveloped our lives. I knew then that we were caught in something beyond our understanding, a chilling dance with the unknown that showed no sign of ending. The unsettling realization that our reality was no longer our own became a chilling prelude to the horrors that awaited us, horrors that were just beginning to reveal themselves. The morning after the night I had spent watching Daisy, the doll, in my room, I found myself questioning the fabric of our reality. Sleep had been elusive, and every shadow in the house seemed to harbor secrets. Ava, my daughter, was still asleep, her innocent face a stark contrast to the fear that gripped my heart. I've always prided myself on being a rational man, a skeptic who needed solid proof before believing in anything. But the events of the past few nights, especially with Daisy, were shaking the foundations of my disbelief. The attic of our house, a place shrouded in dust and memories, was where I first began to truly question my skepticism. It was in this cluttered, shadow-filled space that I found Daisy, placed among boxes of old photographs and forgotten heirlooms. Ava hadn't ventured up here since we moved in. How then did Daisy end up in this time-forgotten place? I picked up the doll, its glassy eyes seeming to bore into mine, and a shiver ran down my spine. Trying to dispel the growing unease, I reminded myself it was just a doll. But the silent, watchful atmosphere of the attic said otherwise. When I handed Daisy back to Ava, her reaction only deepened my concern. "But I left her in my room," Ava said, her voice a mix of confusion and fear. The look in her eyes was unsettling. It was clear she believed something out of the ordinary was happening. That night, our house felt like a living entity, with every creak and whisper magnifying my dread. I decided on a temporary solution: to lock Daisy in the trunk of my car. It was a desperate measure, driven by the hope of finding some peace, however fleeting. Placing Daisy in the cramped, dark space of the trunk, I felt a momentary sense of relief. "It's just for tonight," I told myself, shutting the trunk with a finality that I hoped would last. But sleep was a stranger to me that night. My dreams were haunted by Daisy's image, her porcelain features twisted into grotesque expressions. I awoke repeatedly, each time feeling as though the doll's presence lingered in the room. In the morning, a sense of foreboding accompanied me as I walked to the car. The trunk was open, and Daisy was nowhere to be seen. My heart raced with a mix of fear and disbelief. How was this possible? Back inside, I found Ava in the kitchen, Daisy sitting at the table like a guest at breakfast. "She was cold in the car, Daddy," Ava said softly, avoiding my gaze. The rational part of my mind was screaming for a logical explanation, but the fear in my gut told a different story. The events of the day only added to the growing horror. Daisy seemed to move of her own volition, appearing in different rooms, always somewhere she shouldn't be. Ava's relationship with the doll was changing too. Her initial affection was now tinged with a palpable fear. As evening fell, the house felt charged with an unseen energy. Shadows danced along the walls, and the air was thick with an unspoken tension. Ava clung to me, whispering in a trembling voice, "I don't like Daisy anymore." That night, as Ava slept, I sat awake, Daisy positioned across from me. Her eyes seemed to follow me in the dim light, and I felt a chilling realization wash over me. The line between the natural and the supernatural was not just blurred. It had been erased. Memories of my own childhood fears, long buried, surged to the forefront of my mind. I had always dismissed them, but now, in the presence of Daisy, they returned with a vengeance. I demanded aloud, "What do you want?" to the silent doll. The oppressive feeling of being watched was my only answer. As dawn broke, I knew our lives had changed irrevocably. The supernatural was no longer a concept to be debated. It was a reality, living in our home, embodied by Daisy. I, John Anderson, the skeptic, had to accept the existence of the unexplainable. For Ava's sake, for my sanity. The attic and the car trunk were now more than just parts of our home. They were symbols of the thin veil between our world and something unknown. Daisy, a conduit to this eerie realm, had forced me to see the truth. Sitting there with the first rays of sunlight filtering through the window, I looked at Ava, asleep in her room, and then at Daisy on the table. Our future was uncertain. As the sun dipped below the horizon, our backyard transformed into a haunting stage set by the lingering twilight. The elongated shadows cast an ominous pall over everything, mirroring the dread coiling in my stomach. Ava, gripping my hand, her tiny fingers cold and trembling, stared down at the doll lying at our feet. Its glassy eyes, now catching the last vestiges of daylight, seemed to mock our fear, our desperation. "Daddy, will it go away this time?" Ava's voice, a fragile whisper, was laden with a terror that no child should ever bear. Kneeling beside her, I tried to muster a confidence I was far from feeling. "Yes, honey, I'll make sure of it." But inside, my heart was racing, my mind grappling with the reality that this was no mere child's toy. It was an embodiment of something sinister, something beyond comprehension. With nightfall creeping in, I hastily gathered kindling and old newspapers, forming a makeshift pyre in a desperate bid to rid us of this malevolent presence. The initial flicker of flames brought a deceptive comfort, casting an eerie glow that seemed to animate the doll's sinister features. Ava retreated a few steps, her eyes torn between relief and fear. As the doll was placed amidst the growing flames, I expected the fire to engulf it, to turn it into ash, to end our nightmare. Yet, the flames seemed to curl around it, leaving it unscathed, its grin almost widening in the firelight. Ava's grip on my arm tightened. "Why isn't it burning, Daddy?" I stood there, dumbfounded. Logic and reason failed to explain the sight before us. The fire should have consumed it, but instead, the doll sat unharmed, as if mocking the flames. This is unnatural," I murmured, my voice lost amidst the crackling of the fire. It dawned on me then. We were in the throes of something supernatural, something that defied all understanding. A chill set in, not just from the night air, but from the palpable sense of evil that the doll exuded. It was as if its very presence was suffocating the world around us, transforming our backyard into a tableau of unspeakable horror. Ava, sensing the shift, edged closer, her small body quivering. "I'm scared, Daddy," she whispered. I wrapped my arms around her, a futile attempt to shield her from the terror that unfolded before us. "It's going to be okay, Ava. I won't let anything happen to you." But my reassurances rang hollow. How do you protect your child from an evil that defies the very fabric of reality? The night deepened, and the doll remained impervious to the flames, its malevolent gaze cutting through the fire. It was taunting us, reveling in our fear and helplessness. The realization that burning it wouldn't suffice struck me with a chilling clarity. We were dealing with an entity that required more than just fire to be vanquished. In a desperate act, I grabbed a shovel, thrusting it into the fiery embers, intent on burying the doll. The heat seared my skin, but I persisted, driven by the need to protect Ava, to end this nightmare. But then, a scream, chilling, inhuman, tore through the night. The ground beneath us trembled, the world itself seeming to recoil in terror. Ava's scream mingled with the unearthly sound, her body shaking against mine. The fire dimmed, a cold wind snuffing out the remaining flames. In the unnerving quiet that followed, the doll was gone, leaving behind scorched earth and an enduring sense of dread. I held Ava close, her sobs resonating with my own fear. The horror we had witnessed was beyond comprehension. Though the doll had vanished, its malevolent spirit lingered, an unquenchable fire that continued to burn in our hearts. Standing under the starless sky, I realized our ordeal was far from over. The doll's physical form might have disappeared, but its essence, its terror, remained a haunting echo in our lives. Looking down at Ava, her face buried in my chest, I knew I would do anything, face any horror, to protect her from the darkness that now seemed ever present, lurking just beyond the realm of the seen. As the dawn of a new day broke over the horizon, it marked not just a new beginning, but also a haunting reminder of the night's terror. Ava and I had fled from the ashes of our backyard, seeking refuge in a new town, a place where the shadows of our past might not reach us. But the scars of our ordeal with Daisy, the doll, were not so easily left behind. The town, nestled among gentle hills, promised a semblance of peace. Its picturesque beauty was a stark contrast to the lingering dread that clung to our hearts. Our new home, with its inviting facade, seemed like a sanctuary. Yet, as the sun set, casting long shadows through the windows, it felt as if those same shadows were whispering secrets of a past we couldn't escape. Ava, with a resilience that belied her years, tried to find comfort in our new surroundings. But I could see the echoes of fear in her eyes, a mirror to my own apprehension. Daisy, though physically gone, had left an indelible mark on our souls, haunting our every step. The house, while cozy, carried an air of the uncanny, as if it were privy to secrets it dared not share. At night, the walls seemed to murmur, the windows framing the inky darkness outside, with an almost sentient watchfulness. Our new town, with its cobblestone streets and ivy-clad buildings, was steeped in folklore and tales of the supernatural. It was as though our own brush with the unexplainable had drawn us to this place, a town where reality and the supernatural danced a delicate, unseen waltz. Ava and I spent our evenings in a fragile routine of board games and stories, an attempt to forge normalcy. Yet, our conversations inevitably drifted back to Daisy, to the nights of unrelenting fear. "Do you think it's really over, Dad?" Ava would ask, her voice quivering slightly. I wanted to assure her, to promise safety, but the truth was a shadow that loomed over us, unspoken and heavy with doubt. Weeks passed, and the initial sense of escape slowly morphed into a suspenseful anticipation. Our home, our town, the very air we breathed, seemed to hum with a silent expectation. We were like actors on a stage, waiting for the next act to begin, unsure of our roles in the unfolding drama. Then, one evening, as Ava slept, a sound shattered the silence. Faint, barely perceptible, like the ghost of a whisper. My heart skipped a beat. I checked on Ava, finding her in peaceful slumber, then returned to the living room, my mind racing. That sound, barely there yet undeniably real, rekindled the smoldering fears in my heart. I sat in the dim light, staring into the shadows, gripped by an unsettling realization. Our encounter with Daisy, the doll that defied destruction, was not an isolated nightmare. It was the beginning of a story that had yet to reveal its true horror. As we close tonight's eerie journey into the heart of a home transformed by fear, thank you for being part of Lurking Raven. We've wandered through the story of Ava and Daisy, witnessing how a crafted doll became a conduit between the living and the supernatural. In every corner of a child's innocent world, there may lie secrets that challenge our understanding of reality. Remember, the unseen whispers and unspoken truths can sometimes be the most powerful. If this tale of mystery and the unknown has captivated you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more enthralling stories. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your mind alert. For in the world of the unexplained, the next revelation might be lurking just around the corner.